Alright, you guys ready to do some stats finally? Guess what? You're not gonna have any numbers yet today either. We're covering a lot of terminology and what statistics is. There's a lot of definitions. We're gonna get all, knock as many of this definition bullshit out of the way today. So math 21. We'll call this the official lecture day one. We're gonna hit 1.1 and 1.2. And statistics is all about gathering and analyzing data. That's not the official definition of a statistic. We'll actually hit that today. The definition of a statistic, it actually means a specific thing, but when people say statistics, this is what they generally mean. So like, let's think about the different types of data we could have. One type of data we could have is called quantitative data. And another type, we'll call it qualitative. Do either of those words look like a word that you know? Yeah,
Yeah, it's quantity and quality.
looks like quantity and quality, right? Quantity is like how many of something, right? How many of something, it's a number. So quantitative data is definitely gonna be numerical data. Quality is like type or trait. The type of data, or type. So like, what type of hair do you have? What type of height do you have? What? Lots of different things fall into this category. This is quality, or we could call it an attribute about something, or a trait. Characteristic. Most of these are not numbers. We'll brainstorm some ideas of what could be each. Some are. So we'll discuss a way to tell the difference between the two. Let's come up with a list of things that might fall in this category. It might be easier to start with qualitative, because I even said a couple. Qualitative data types. Or examples, I'll say. You do hair color. Eye color. Build. Like what type of body frame you have. This is just talking about people, but a lot of statistics are about a wide range of things. Type of car. Is it sedan? Is it a SUV? It's a category. Nationality. Either where you were born or where you have adopted nationality, kind of thing. Can you guys think of any that might be numerical that would count as a category? That's what these really are, it's a category, right? breaking them down into categories.
Population,
What do you mean by that?
like if you're doing statistics, like we were doing a statistic on this class, we'd have the amount of people and then we'd have. Like the qualitative, like the study for what we're trying to get statistics on, but in order to call it.
Well, I can do that with
Quantitative.
qualitative or quantitative. Like I could ask you over to do the hair color thing and get qualitative with you guys.
Yeah,
I could also ask you like how old you are and get quantitative data, right? So population in and of itself, not necessarily. We will use populations for both, yeah.
The language you speak,
Language you speak, that will work. That is a different type of category, not necessarily nationality.
Like, would it be like even numbers, odd numbers, that different category, I don't.
We could. Even odd is a valid response, if we were doing something on dice and wanted to break up the results of dice, we could break it up into even or odd. Rather than looking at the actual numbers. There are numbers associated with things you know. That are qualitative, but if it's not striking an idea, let's take a look at quantitative data. And see what it has to have. So quantitative examples. I said we could have numerical in both. So I wanna add something here, like we have to be able to do math on it. Like adding and subtracting should make sense. Averaging. Taking the average of something should make sense. Like age, I could take the average age in this room. I could do the average height. Or weight. We could do distance driven to school. Hi, Letitia. Thank you. Watching from home, always welcome. Any other things that are number related that you think you could add? Subtract, maybe find an average of? Income,
Test results.
test results. I do that shit all the time, find the
what do
average.
you do per household, or like,
Yeah, people per household. We could find the average number of people per household. That makes sense. Adding and subtracting makes sense, it's called birth and death. You remember in the household, you had a baby. Someone passed away, the household size went down. A little grim on one of those topics, really exciting on the other, but. In terms of statistics, it's just another number. So not necessarily just people per household, but even cars per household. This is deep, some households have 0 cars. You'd be surprised to hear what some families have in terms of number of cars, you're like, oh, fuck, you park them. I had students say like their family had like fucking 9 or 10 cars, I'm like. You have a fucking parking lot or something, where? Like, why do you have so many, people in the house, all the cars? You know what, I think my brother-in-law would fall into that category. Cause he's got 7 kids, 3 of them are his, 4 of them. His wife had from a previous marriage, but they all live at home. I don't know. One of them, okay, either way, there's a lot of kids, family comes over, friends come over, girlfriend lives in there, there's a lot of cars in that fucking house. They're parked, they have a corner lot, and they have cars parked all around that motherfucker. With that in mind, can you think of anything that's number related that isn't? acceptable to use with math, like we can't add or subtract or divide and it wouldn't make any sense. You all have a few. Associated distinctly with you. Any ideas, something that you have that you use as a number that's related to you? That you wouldn't add or subtract, to make any sense out of it?
Age,
You're what?
age,
Adding or subtracting, well, subtracting doesn't really make sense, but adding does, you get older, right? You get older. So adding, we could add the age, so like ages, we're gonna keep over in quantitative. Oddly enough, I don't see anyone actually holding one right now. Phone number is one of them. Can I take an average phone number and have it make any fucking sense whatsoever? No. It doesn't make any sense to average a phone number. I can't say everybody in this room has it, but I suspect everybody does. Social security number. Also associated with phone number would be area code. That's definitely a category, area. It's called area code because like all the calls in a particular area start, well, when it was landlines. Were in a particular area, now, like my cell phone starts with 831, that's Santa Cruz area. That's where I got the phone and I never gave it up even when I came back here. Zip code. An average zip code, that doesn't make no, right? So like something when you like actually think about it, can I do any math on this shit and have it make any sense? So those are the types of data types we have. We can break down quantitative into two more. Quantitative can be. Oh. I'll go down here. This has got two subcategories. It can be discrete. Or it can be continuous. Discrete has a different definition in math than a lot of normal uses. Like you want your drug dealer to be discreet. If you have a drug dealer, I hope you guys don't. But in mathematics, discrete means it's like countable. It's a whole number. Continuous is not countable. But it is measurable. It's things we measure. So things we measure are. Are length. Weight. Time. These are the common ones you can think of. Length has a lot of meanings here, like height of a person is your length. A length on a car would be like headlight to trunk. Well, not every car has the trunk in the back. Bumper to bumper, let's say. Weight, depending on different numerical systems, like we use pounds and every other place uses kilograms, but there's still measures of, well, now, kilograms are measures of mass. Pounds is a measure of weight, they're not quite the same thing. But they are in similar categories, they're related. Time, you know, hours, seconds, minutes. We can measure those with a stopwatch. Which puts age in the continuous category. We could, most people don't think of age as anything but a whole number. You asked me how old I was, I'm gonna say I'm 49 right now. I'm not gonna say I'm 49.736. Wow, that might be pretty close. My birthday's in 3 months, so it's pretty close to 0.75. But fuck, I'm gonna be 50, fuck. That sucks. But like, you can break it down further. If you can take a number and break it down into a smaller unit and it makes sense, that's something you measure. Pounds can be broken down into ounces. Hours can be broken down into minutes, minutes can be broken down into seconds. We get to break down seconds, microseconds, milliseconds, stuff like that. So if it's got a smaller component, it's something you measure. Some things. You might wonder about. When I say countable. Countable means you can count it. Not whether you would. The number of hairs on a person's head are countable. You could do it. I don't know that you could do it without shaving the person's hair off and then counting each individual strand, but you could. Leaves on a tree are countable. If you wait for them all to fall off, but would you? No, just because something is doable doesn't mean you would. It's still gonna fall under the discrete category. You will have a question on your midterm related to, is this discrete or continuous? Is this qualitative or quantitative? There's a couple questions like that on the midterm. So like, this topic will come back up. Think about it for a little while when you're doing it. Any questions on the type of data? Because that's what everything we do with statistics is about. So we need to be able to know like what data is. And stuff like that. So actually, what is data? I didn't actually say what data is. Does anyone need this up longer before I start yanking it? Anyone still writing? Alright. What is data?
Gather information.
It's gathered information, yeah. Data is actually plural. It's a plural thing, like people. The singular is datum. But you never hear people say datum, it's a weird word. They'd say a piece of data or something like that. So gather information is collected. So why do we collect information? Why do we collect data?
Solve a problem.
It's almost invariably to solve a problem, whether you think it's a problem or not, yeah. Used to figure shit out, how about we say that? Could be a problem. It could be, any decision you need to make, and you wanna know if you're making the right decision. Any decision can be supported with some data, and this process. You want to sell eyeglasses for a living. Let's say you're like, I'm into that, I wanna, maybe not like prescription lenses, but I wanna be like Ray-Ban or some shit like that. If I have a certain style of glasses, is it gonna sell? I don't wanna put out a pair, a set of frames on the market and have it not sell. And if it does sell, how much can I get for it? So you like show people and go like, would you buy this? Would you buy this at this price? Would you buy it at this price? Would you buy it at this price? And you can figure out what price to sell that, or if everybody says that's ugly as shit, you're like, maybe not, maybe I won't try to sell this. So companies do it all the time to decide how they're gonna sell shit. Sometimes, I don't know that they do. I've seen some soda fucking flavors that I'm like. Who the fuck came up with this and thought this was a good idea?
Stoner shade.
Yeah, it was fucking high as a kite when they came up with this, said, you know what, this sounds good when I'm high, so maybe other people would like it. Point is, we use it to make decisions. Believe it or not, we can have TMI in this data world. What's TMI mean? Too much info. To collect this shit, the guy that wants to sell eyeglasses or fucking fucked up soda flavors. You gotta go ask people. And that takes time. If anything else, if you're doing it yourself, it still takes time. You can ask a lot of fucking people if you're willing to do a lot of time. I could spend a year asking people, going around the fucking country asking, would you like this? That doesn't seem like a good use of my time. That is a waste of time on the market. Especially for me, like I wouldn't wanna do it, you're not making any money then. So, okay, I could pay someone to do it. How much you wanna pay? So like there's things that limit, like what's a good use of collecting information. You'll also find later on in the course, doing statistics, sometimes having too much information makes it so you can't like use the process of statistics effectively. Like you'll see, like it's literally TMI. It makes meaningful shit meaningless or meaningless shit meaningful. We'll see later on. And we'll talk about like when TMI is going on. But let's say you go and you're selling these new brand of they're not Ray-Bans, but they're another stuff. I had a recent pair that I bought in the last couple of years, they were called Dragons. I bought them because it's a fucking name. All eyeglasses frames pretty much do the same fucking thing, they hold the lens, that's the important part. And they all look, more or less the same on me. If I try to look too stylish, I look like a fucking nerd that's trying to look cool. So I just roll with the nerd look, right? But. If I had a list of like 1,000 people and like what brands they like on sunglasses. Or what flavors of soda they like to use. Is that really usable? What if I ask 10,000 people? Having a list of like results isn't as helpful as it sounds. So when we take it, what we do with this data. We take the data and we summarize it. Data collected. And we summarize it. Numerically. I used numerical earlier, numerical is related to the word number. It means we use a number to resolve it. Now, in terms of like sunglasses or soda pop flavor, I could say. What proportion or percentage of the people liked cherry cola? What percentage of the people would wear sunglasses? That don't versus don't. Things like that. So like averages and stuff like that. I can do that with things that isn't qualitative or quantitative. I can find the percentage of people that have dark hair in this room. Hair color isn't a number, unless you're dyeing it. Like they usually say that the hair dye is numbered, right, cause like, there's like, I don't know, 100 shades of blonde. I don't know. I haven't dyed my hair, if I did, I'd wanna go like royal blue or purple. My wife wouldn't let me, I wanted to. I think I told you guys that, maybe, yeah. So we summarize it numerically, and it doesn't have to come from data that's numerical. Like, we can talk about the percentage of cars that are sedans versus pickups. Stuff like that, not just people related. So we summarize it, and doing this, it makes the data more meaningful. In the decision-making process. We just got done as a country going through something that we were fucking slam dunk with data every goddamn day. A new statistic every fucking day, often multiple times a day. Who's favored to win in this state, who's favored to win in that state? Not just about president, but senators and all sorts of shit. And they take polls constantly because information changes. People change their mind, more people start paying attention. Some people stop paying attention and, like, changes answers. So they constantly kind of wanna know what's going on, but like. They can't ask everybody in the country, right, when they're doing polling, that doesn't make any sense. Like. Where do you stand on who's gonna be president in the next upcoming election? If I ask everybody in the country, we do that, it's called election day. We do it once, it's a fucking lot of work. So they don't ask a lot of people, they ask enough in different places. And go, what's the percentages like here? And what we try to do is we'll take this data. Take data from smaller groups. Like polling stations during an election. And we try to make a connection to the rest of the population. Try to make a connection to the overall result. To the group as a whole, I'll say. Group as a whole is called the population. We often associate population with people count. But it doesn't have to be. It could be the number of cars in Visalia. It could be the number of homes in Visalia. It's an amount. And it represents the total number present in a group. The smaller group thing. The smaller group will be what we call a sample. It's a sample of the population. We just got done with Christmas. See's Candy likes to sell sampler boxes. Not just See's, but like. Whitman's, that's the name of the other, like the chocolate brand. They sell a sampler package. It doesn't cover all the ones they have. But it covers a sample of flavors they have. Sample. So this is where the definition of statistics comes in. Statistics, the actual definition of statistics. Is a numerical summary. Of the data. Regarding a sample of the population. So we call it statistics because we're usually doing a sample of the population. All the stuff we do with statistics is completely fucking unnecessary. If it's easy to ask or like if it's a person, ask every person. If it's easy to ask every person, we don't need to do statistics. If I only needed to find out information about this classroom in particular, and I didn't give a shit about the other classes I teach or anyone else on campus, it's really to ask you, there's only 25 of you or so. It wouldn't take me that long, it wouldn't take me much money, I could do it free. I could make it part of your grade, so you'd be happy to participate. It wouldn't be hard to do, so I wouldn't need to do any of the statistical work I'm doing. But if I wanna know everything about COS, I don't wanna ask everybody, COS can't even ask everybody. They will email every student, but not every student checks their email. Right?
Yeah.
I bet, how many of you like have checked your email once this fucking semester? Y'all should check it more often, because if something happens, like classes canceled or something like that, that's how you're gonna find out. We'll put an announcement on Canvas, Canvas usually emails like, if I do something on Canvas, it emails the students on my classes. If I'm sick, I'm gonna say I'm sick. Otherwise, you can drive to campus and show up and find out the hard way. Or like if something's going on, like something's important related to your coursework. We're not gonna call you personally, now I have called people personally. We do have access to your phone numbers and where you live. So don't piss me, no. I will make call occasionally if I feel it's necessary and in your best interest. If like you just drop off the map and you are getting an A in the class and all of a sudden Springbrook rolls around and I don't see you for 2 weeks. And we're like, did you fucking forget? Did you just tap out? You were doing well, I might call you and go, hey. You know, like, you're gonna, like, that A is going away if you don't come back. You know? I've done it where, I've called during finals. Someone missed the final, didn't email me, and they were overall a fantastic student. And I would call and go, what the fuck happened? You know, finals a big portion of your grade. So got in an accident, I haven't had time to email, okay, we'll figure out what we're gonna do on doing your final, I'm not gonna just fail you because grandma got in an accident. And I will tend to believe you if you've gotten a good grade so far, there's no reason for you to lie about it at the end. So, I don't know why I went into all that, I'll call you. But it was like people like collecting data from all COS students, it's not realistic. We do have it where you can, when you can do it, we call the same piece of information a parameter. A parameter is a numerical summary. Of the data. Regarding a population. So we're no longer talking about a sample. So what we do is like. Go ahead and talk about like the process, there's a process here. We don't just do shit, well, does anyone need that longer? I'll put it back up, give you a little bit longer, sorry. Anybody else? Go. So the process of the statistics. Step one, identify the topic or research of your objective. We're collecting data, we're doing research. We're researching our R&D at companies, research and development. Find out what will sell and develop it. Along with this, identify the corresponding population. Or appropriate population. If I want shit about COS students, I'm not gonna put a poll on my fucking Facebook, because I'm gonna get people that are not at COS responding. Right? Makes sense. If I don't give a shit what's going on in other states, I'm not gonna do something that's online, I'll have people go to a couple major cities in California and. Like if you're a big company, you wanna know, like, but maybe it's specifically California related. So population, which group of people you're gonna have matter. Remember, population doesn't necessarily mean people. And so what we do mean by population is a population. Is a group that shares similar traits. It's a group with. A common trait. I could go guys versus girls. There are a lot of questions in this class that have been set up where it's guys versus girls. They didn't do non-binary. Because generally that population is low enough that it's really, you can't always ask enough people and guarantee you're gonna have any non-binary responses. They will do a lot of guys versus girl things in here. Don't think that's a targeted thing, if you hear it, when we do it, it just means that, like, the category wise. If I ask 10,000 people and one person identifies as non-binary, gender wise. That 1 in 10,000 people does not affect the outcome. There's just not enough. There are some things that you do have it. But not necessarily here. Okay, so once we figured out what we want to study, what we want to figure out. What we want to make a decision about, what we're gonna do is conduct an experiment to collect data. We're gonna talk about this more in chapter 1. That's the rest of what we're gonna do today and Thursday. And like I said before, the data itself isn't necessarily helpful, so we're gonna get a numerical summary. The numerical summary as a category wise, we call it descriptive statistics. We're gonna use the data to develop descriptive statistics. The numerical summary is describing something about the sample that you had. If I ask people how many of you would buy a particular brand of sunglasses, I could get a percentage after I average it out, I could get a percentage of, what percentage of people in here would buy that type of glass? That describes the consumer base. We'll cover processes to do this in chapters 2 through 4. 4 is called performing inference. Perform inference. And this is gonna have two, I'll describe that more in just a second. We're gonna talk about the reliability of what we do. That is not how you spell reliability, I need some more letters in there. Reliability. We'll talk about that in chapters 5 through 8. And we'll also look at the techniques to do it. And that'll be chapters 9 through 13. Put my parentheses in a weird spot right there. So what that all is makes a little bit more sense when you know what inference is. So we want to take our descriptive stats. Remember, this is about a sample group. And infer or deduce or imply something about the overall population. That's called performing inference, when we take the information about the part and we try to apply it to the whole. They do this all the time with the elections. Try to figure out who's in the lead and say, if they're in the lead with this group of people. Then that same group, if we look at everybody in the entire country that's in that same category. About the same percentage is gonna vote that way. If we looked back at the last election on Trump versus Biden. They did it with every fucking category of people you can think of. They broke it down by nationality, they broke it down by gender, they broke it down by age category. Is this at each category and this? Even no, they went skin color. Cause like everybody that's voting is an American, so the nationality is US, so the Mexican American people, blacks, Asians, whites, or Caucasians, whatever name they give you. How is the female group above age 40 gonna vote? How are the 20 to 30-year-olds gonna vote? You know, they try to get information on all sorts of groups, but. And so they gotta ask a lot of people, but it's just a small percentage of the population. And they go, all right, which groups are we really struggling in the sample group? Those are the people we're gonna target in our advertisements and try to rope them in to vote for us come election day. You heard Trump recently flipped his opinion on TikTok. He wanted to be, I'm gonna ban TikTok, I'm gonna ban TikTok. And now he's like, nope, I want TikTok. TikTok helped me win this election. TikTok got me through to all the 20 to 30-year-olds. All the 18 and over that you can vote. It connected with the lower age demographic of people. I don't wanna give that up, that was useful. So like his entire stance changed when he realized it was good for him. He liked it. Based on breaking down demographics. Kind of hard to argue against something when you're like, yeah, this worked for me, maybe it's not as bad. I get where he came from. I don't know that I would change my mind on like he did, but I get where he came from. Okay, so that's called inference, but. Polling is not necessarily reliable. We've had this, some of you are young enough that you wouldn't have paid attention 4 years ago. But it didn't even happen this year, it was supposed to be fucking closer than it was. If you look by voting, like what the poll said in each fucking state, the swing state votes where there's roughly the same balance of voters. They thought it was gonna be a much closer race, and Trump beat the shit out of Biden. Like a fucking grown man beating a 5-year-old, it was a ass whooping. We haven't seen an ass whooping like that in the elections for a long time, and the polls never showed it. So. It's not always reliable. So that's why we're gonna discuss reliability and techniques of how to get it, which techniques to use. That are best for specific scenarios based on what you're trying to look for. Which is based on the number of groups you're looking at, things like that. That's the process of statistics. Let's take a 10-minute break. It's time. It's been an hour. One point that we just covered 1.1, 1.2 is on variables in statistics. We have two main categories. We have the explanatory variable. And we have the response variable. Explanatory, it looks a lot like the word explain. This explains why an outcome may have occurred. There's two R's in occurred. Some words are just tricky, no matter how well you spell, I'm talking, you like, that doesn't look right, no matter how you do it, that looks the most right. I know one C is not right, and one R looks funny when you do it. The response variable was. What was it, what was affected? What outcome occurred based on the explanation? The really, really long fucking way of saying. Cause and effect. That's pretty straightforward. What caused it and what was the outcome, what was the effect? Let's look at this in a little more detail using an example. So here's a scenario for you. A survey was conducted with teenagers. To see if owning a mini fridge in the bedroom led to obesity. What was the explanatory variable here? And what was the response?
must answer.
Yeah,
I think the explanatory is obesity,
is what?
but the explanatory variable would be the obesity, like, and then the response. I got it right. Is that what it is?
So is the obesity explaining something?
No,
What's explaining what in this? Or what do they think is explaining what? The fridge. Owning a fridge. They're gonna use that to try to explain. Why someone was obese. Or I guess non-obese is the other option. Non-obesity. Do you think that's a good reason to justify obesity? Is that enough to say, like, if the teenager's got a mini fridge and. Obesity, they decide owning mini fridges, it affects obesity. Does that seem reasonable?
No, because it's what you put in the fridge, not the fridge itself.
There's other factors going on in play, right? There's other factors in play. One of them is. That is actually usually one of the last ones people say, contents of the fridge matter. If you're just using it to store bottled water and fucking fresh fruit. I'm betting that's not fucking explaining shit. What other things might lead to obesity that aren't being explained by this survey?
lifestyle choices.
Lifestyle choices. You wanna be more specific with that?
Just talk like if they work out or not, active.
Activity level or exercise, that's it, that's. I assume that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But lifestyle, there's a lot of choices we make in our life that we could argue is lifestyle. Like what we eat,
Drink or not.
I'm guessing you mean alcohol?
Yeah.
Hopefully the teenagers aren't drinking alcohol, but
It might, I mean,
there are a lot more do than the fucking adults wanna think. Everybody, every parents think their fucking kids are fucking saints. I wonder when my mom stopped thinking that. She never said anything. When I was like. Shit, I did it when I was 17, maybe even when I was 16. When I was like 16 to 21, I used to use methamphetamines. I was an overweight druggie. I wonder if she never said anything, I wonder if she ever figured it out. Police never did. But she had to, like, my brother did it too, I eventually quit, and I actually put it on like my application, saying I used to do it. And it helps me identify when a student needs some extra help. If you're letting drugs affect your success in education, I can talk to you and shit like that. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. Parents don't always acknowledge it, but do you drink alcohol? That does affects it, why? Because it's something you consume. May not ever be in your mini fridge, you wouldn't want, if you're a fucking teenager, you. Hiding the fucking bottle in the fridge is that's a dumb fucking spot. Right?
it's your room
That's
though,
one of the first places your mom or dad's gonna fucking check.
it's your room though.
That doesn't mean shit in the specific household. Some parents will honor the whole, this is my room, I won't go in. But again, that's a smaller group than fucking. Children believe, they just go in when you're not there. And you, as long as they don't find anything, you may not ever know. Same way kids go into their parents' room to look for shit, like in particular, birthday time or Christmases, if you celebrate that. If your family celebrates Christmas, did you ever, as a child, go fucking looking, try to figure out what your fucking Christmas presents were ahead of time?
To think about.
I bet most of us have.
I like the surprise.
Have you always liked the surprise? You're not in the young child category, this tends to be a young child thing to do. The ones that did do it, you probably stopped doing it after you got to a certain age because the surprise is nice. It really fucking sucks when you already know everything you're getting on Christmas Day. This isn't fucking exciting, it's the suspense, it's the mystery. Yeah, there's a lot of things that parents and children don't know about each other. What else might lead to obesity?
How much?
Quantity of food. You can eat the healthiest shit in the world, if you eat a fucking enough of it, your body just can't get rid of the energy fast enough, start storing it.
Like family history, like your genes.
Genetics. Family history. Anything else you guys can think of?
Time of day. Like we eat late at night and then go to bed.
You may be a binge eater during certain times of day. I would argue that might fall under the lifestyle category. But. I hear you. So what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat. Genetic. Society. Or social norms affect this. Some cultures are more likely to carve up than others. Some culture that eats a lot of rice.
Japanese.
Oh, are we guessing categories? There's a lot of categories of cultures that eat a lot of rice. Japanese is one of them. Why? Because rice grows well on their islands. They can make little plateaus and easy to grow, it's cheap. But they're not the only one. Other cultures eat a lot of rice.
But usually a lot of people are rice eating in the rice eating countries are all skinny.
True.
They have a lot of soy too.
Yeah. Point was, social things can affect it as well. Not every culture, like a lot of American culture, is eat garbage. We see ads for fast food and shit all the time. How often do you see an ad for, why don't you fucking go to the grocery store and buy shit to make a salad? Without it being something like, and then put a lot of dressing on it. We don't see shit like that. We're inundated with shit that tells us to eat unhealthy. It doesn't discuss the negatives of eating unhealthy. Fun fact, and I didn't know this to be true, my cousin was telling me about this after the election results happened. Our country, like cereals, are a lot fucking sweeter than other places. I saw something on the Daily Show about this where they were saying, not Daily Show, like Colbert, saying this is all bullshit, but if you like look at the ingredients and shit. Sure, they look as long, but we have a lot of artificial shit in ours where other countries, like, they flavor fucking tricks. With fruit flavors, like actual, like. Sugars from fruit where we will use fucking. Sugar, you know? So, definitely, social or cultural norms there. Okay, so what is this category called? This is a category of stuff. These are called lurking variables. Lurk is a great fucking word. Cats lurk. When they're getting ready to pounce on some shit, they're fucking stuck in a fucking rat or a mouse or. But sometimes a fucking fly. See a fucking fly, they'll fucking creep up. Fucking lurking, they're sneaky. It means that they're there, but they're not obvious. So possible explanatory variables. That are not being discussed in the experiment. So let's say we wanted to make a better survey. Let's say, okay, we upgraded scenario. I only put this on the page, I'm not going to write what I want right here. Upgraded scenario. They monitor. Bridge ownership. Exercise level. Diet. And a lot of shit. Now the problem becomes. We've got too many things explaining what's going on. Too many things explaining what's going on. So we can't identify which it is. These are called confounding variables. Now, some of the problems in the homework will ask you, what's the explanatory variable? What's the response variable? I can tell you right now. I don't have any questions like that on the midterm. But, like, you're supposed to be learning something in here and you wanna think about that shit. When if you're doing an experiment, trying to fucking figure out a result. You wanna think about things that might affect the result, whether or not you thought about them initially. You're gonna do a project later this semester. You wanna try to think of like whatever you decide to work on. What kind of shit might explain what's going on, things like that.
Is it easy to think too much into what we do? I don't know anything about something.
I've yet to see a group try to do too much. I've never seen this group that was like, oh, we're gonna be fucking ambitious as fuck and try to,
Well, I mean, like confuse yourself while you're overthinking it.
oh yeah, you do this shit all the time.
Okay.
It's really easy to overthink shit.
Yay.
You can overshoot, overshoot, what the fuck, that ain't even a word. You can overthink what you're gonna have for breakfast. Fucking deciding on a meal, you could spend more time thinking about what you're gonna eat than. There's a lot of ways we can overthink, we're an interesting fucking species. So like. This is like when two variables can't be separated, two or more. Can't be separated to decide which is the explanation. Now, there's a way to go about doing this, but it's harder than hell to monitor the genetic aspect. But you could make groups of all sorts of shit. If you ask that you got enough people in this experiment. We could have teenagers that have great diet, everything else is bad. good exercise, but everything else is bad. We could have diet and exercise are both good, but bad genetics. We could have genetics are good and diet is bad, but exercise level is. We could have fucking 40 different groups, 50 different combinations. We had enough fucking things, we could might be able to find the combination of all the elements. That's most likely to lead to obesity. That sounds like a lot of fucking work. That's overthinking it. So yeah, you can definitely overthink it. Some other stuff to note. We have two major types of study. We can do an observational study. Study is their short word of saying experiment. So an observational study or experiment records the results by just looking at responses or outcomes without trying to influence the outcome. The project you do is most likely going to do this. Not necessarily, I'll show you examples in the course of the semester, you'll see what other students at COS have done. Some of them are in the second group, but a lot of observation, you ask a survey. You're not influencing the decision, you're just checking what people say and you're gonna go based off what they say. It may not even be like a survey you give them, you just may monitor them. Like doctors monitor patients and they don't ask you questions going, this is part of the survey, they just go, this drug worked, this drug didn't, kind of thing. The other type of category is called the designed experiment. Individuals are assigned to a group. We'll say different groups. And the explanatory variable is intentionally changed. For one or more groups. And then the response is recorded for each group separately. Perfect example of this is drug studies. Like prescription drug studies. They want to test whether a new drug is going to be good for something. They break people into two groups, a group that actually gets the drug. And a group that doesn't, but gets something that looks, tastes, smells identical to the drug. When something like looks like the drug of choice that you're working it and it's not, it's called a placebo. So put that down before we're going. Placebos. That's the singular, we add the S for plural. Placebos look, smell, taste. Etc., like the real drug. But have no active ingredients. The reason why they do this is, it's a fucking trippy thing about humanity. I don't know, we don't know if it happens with other creatures, but mind over matter fucking affects it. Sometimes just thinking you're taking the drug helps. Some people get better without getting the drug, it happens. Some things it doesn't happen often, like cancer studies, you don't have a lot of miraculous recoveries in cancer. You might get lucky and they might stop growing. But very rarely do you go, it just fucking went away on its own. They don't, it does happen, they don't know what causes it, there might be the beliefs that it's. So, you know, all sorts of shit, what we have in our environment, what we eat, what we drink. Do we drink, is there too much shit in plastics, there's all sorts of ideas to what leads to cancer. But like, getting it to go backwards, cancer is a mutation in cells, it's abnormal. It happens. Sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's good. But they do this. To know, like, you can't know if the drug is working or not, if sometimes mind over matter works. Unless you get some people to do it and some people not to do it, they all have to think they're taking it. Cause otherwise, if you just thought you were taking a fucking piece of candy, like this looks like a fucking Snickers. No, it's a fucking cure for cancer. No, that wouldn't work, it needs to be like, you need to think you're taking the drug. And that way they look at like, what proportion of people got better versus the group that didn't take it. We'll go over more into this placebo idea, but that is a designed experiment. This second form is the better form when you can do it. The reason why is the designed experiment. This can show something called causation, not just correlation. Is there two fucking R's in correlation? I don't think there is. No, it's like the word relation, that only has one R. Correlation. Here's an example for you of the difference between causation and correlation. In July, burglaries go up and ice cream sales go up. Do ice cream sales cause burglaries? Not unless you do like a very rare situations. I can't imagine an ice cream sale causing a burglary. Do burglaries cause ice cream sales? Not unless you're fucking high and you want ice cream, that doesn't seem like this happens very often. But they both went up together at the same time. Neither one's causing the other, you could easily argue neither one's causing the other, but the data shows that there's a relationship there. That is correlation, not causation. What's the more likely cause of that event? It's fucking hot. That explains ice cream sales being higher. I don't know why crime goes up in summer, but it does. Maybe it's because it's not just heat, but summer, it might be seasonal related. You got more people like students, high schoolers, college students aren't going to school. For a while, they got nothing better to do. I don't know why that would lead to a fucking B&E, but. Apparently, that may not be the cause, but it's definitely not one of the others. When ice cream isn't causing burglaries. So. Ideally, you want to be able to show something caused the other. Not just that they both went up together. I've seen it all the time. In fact, a study I did later on, that whole thing I did, I told you guys about the whole week we spent not doing any math. That was an observational study. Well, I did control it in one way, like one group it was a control group. One group got a week off of doing no math in the beginning, talking about study skills and time management, and the other group didn't. They were broken down by semester. You'll see later on, we'll go over the data results when we're doing near the end of the semester. I came to the conclusion that this is why I do it. But you want causation, not just correlation. I see a lot of arguments, it'll pop up if you look at Reddit and stuff like that, and people say this happened because this happened. And just because two things happen to go up together or down together. Or sometimes they have an opposite relationship, one goes up when the other goes down. Doesn't mean that one causes the other. It doesn't mean it doesn't, but if you do the right form of study, you can actually show one is causing the other because you've accounted for other variables. The reason why we use variable is, got the word vary in it. Vary is something that changes. So like the outcome or whatever the answer is to the question has different answers. If I asked a question and every answer was all the same, no matter who I asked, do you have a pulse? Yes, whether you fucking answer it correctly or not, yes, you have a pulse if you were able to respond to this type of question. You have to, you have to, your heart still has to be fucking pumping, otherwise you're dead, you're not responding to shit. So like, there's only one possible outcome there, there's no bearing there, it's not explaining shit. If I am basing it off the survey. You want things that show causation, show some cause and effect. Causation, cause and effect, that's what we want. Sometimes observational studies and correlation is the best we can get. This can only show correlation. Couple more vocabulary terms and we'll call it a wrap. They have something called a cross-sectional study. And in this study here, info is collected at once. For a long period of time. All right, helpful. I need to come up with a better definition than that. Let me think on that and get back to you on Thursday. There's something called the case control study. And this tends to be something called retrospective. Which means we're like. It's a long-term thing, we're looking back on what happened. Retrospective is you look back on the past. Or long-term is. You're like monitoring all the time. Does a certain lifestyle improve longevity? Longevity is how long you live. This is not something you can do a one-time study. You have to monitor shit over a long period of time to go, what lifestyles lead to longer living? Yeah,
An example for a case control study be like, if you smoke cigarettes for X amount of years, then you have like,
yeah,
you have like a higher chance of getting.
yeah, does smoking for a long time increase the possibility of lung cancer or throat cancer? Or not? You've seen some, everybody knows somebody. I mean, I'm thinking about it, they've been smoking for fucking 50 years and they're fucking. Healthy and fit as a fucking fiddle, no fucking cancer. Someone else can smoke for fucking 3 years and they're gonna get throat cancer, it's just, there's a lot of shit going on. A word you're gonna see is cohort. A cohort is a group of individuals studied over a long period of time. A lot of scholarship programs and programs that, like student success, they have cohorts. Cause like student success programs, they're trying to constantly try to improve. Ways to help students do better, perform better. So they kind of like do break it down by every couple of years is a different cohort. Cause they're slowly adapting their shit to see what works better. If it doesn't work better, they gotta go back and change it back to what it was, but sometimes you just don't know ahead of time if something's gonna improve or not. So they do cohorts. Two more terms for you. A frame. Not like a picture frame. A frame is a list of individuals in a population. This is different but related to the census. A census is basically a frame. But with characteristics and other information recorded. The census, we do it every 10 years in the United States. They go door to door, presumably, and record how many people live there. Just so we know what the population is. There's no way to do it all in one day. The US Census is never accurate, but it's close. You cannot ask everyone in the entire country at the exact same time. And get an accurate result. It's not, you don't have enough manpower to do it. Even doing Visalia takes you can't hire enough people to fucking go hit every house. In one day, at the same time to get the population, and people are born and die every day in Visalia. So population is changing every day. If it takes you a month to collect everything on Visalia, the results change, but it's close. They don't just record who's living there, they ask other things like cultural background, age brackets, other shit like that, they ask a bunch of questions. Those are the two things right there, we'll call that a wrap for today. You are free to GTFO, you can stick around and ask questions if you'd like. I need to go, I didn't upload. I will upload this stuff sometime this week.